There are a number of types of insulin available. Insulin can be categorized by how the insulin is derived and how quickly it acts. How is human analog insulin produced? Similar to human insulin, analog insulin is created in laboratory by growing insulin proteins within E. coli bacteria. The process goes further through changing the order of amino acids to allow the insulin to be used by the body either more rapidly or more uniformly by the body than with regular human insulin. This type of process is known as undergoing recombinant DNA technology. How is animal insulin produced? As the name suggests, animal insulin is taken from the pancreases of animals, usually pigs or cows. The insulin is purified, which reduces the chance of the insulin user developing a reaction to the insulin. How is human insulin produced? Same as analog. Human insulin is laboratory created by growing insulin proteins within E. coli bacteria. Speed of insulins. Each of these types of insulin can also be categorized by the speed at which they work. This is termed the action of the insulin. We have short-acting, intermediate-acting, biphasic insulins, and long-acting. Within short-acting, we have rapid-acting, soluble insulin. Within biphasic insulins, we have intermediate-acting combined with soluble insulin, intermediate-acting combined with rapid-acting insulin. Rapid-acting insulins are usually taken just before or with a meal. They act very quickly to minimize the rise in blood sugar which follows eating. Rapid-acting insulins are commonly prescribed for people with type 1 diabetes. However, there may be times when they can be prescribed for type 2 diabetes. As rapid-acting insulins act very quickly, they can lead to an increased chance of hypoglycemia. Care should therefore be taken when dosing. Soluble insulins will usually be taken before meals. Soluble insulins may also be called regular or neutral insulin, or specifically just short-acting insulin. Your healthcare team can advise on how long before a meal you should take your dose. Soluble insulins are not as quick to act as rapid-acting insulin and therefore may be more appropriate in certain people. Are intermediate-acting insulin known by any other names? Intermediate-acting insulins may also be referred to as isofane or NPH insulins. These are used to mimic the effect of the basal insulin that is secreted continuously throughout the day. Those who inject intermediate-acting insulins should be aware of the risk of hypoglycemia, and particularly the risk of nighttime hypoglycemia. Premixed human insulin consists of a mix of soluble insulin with an intermediate-acting insulin. Examples include Humulin M2, M3, and M5, and Insulin COM 15, 20, and 50. Premixed analog insulins consist of a mix of a rapid-acting insulin analog mixed with an intermediate-acting insulin analog. Examples include Humalog Mix 25 and 50 and Novomix 30. Long-acting insulin may be prescribed for a number of types 1 and type 2 diabetes. Long-acting insulins are available in animal and analog forms. Their activity can last up to 24 hours with the exception of bovine PZI. Bovine PZI, or protamine zinc insulin, can last anywhere up to 36 hours. Long-acting analog insulins have been favored by the NHS because the insulins have no peak activity as such, which allows for a consistent delivery of activity throughout the day. However, as with any form of insulin, hypoglycemia is a common side effect which one should be aware of. Long-acting insulins will be injected either once or twice daily. The action of insulin measures how soon after injecting insulin will start to work. The duration of insulin is how long after injecting a dose of insulin will remain working for. Insulin actions are quite an important concept, particularly for insulin-dependent diabetics. In an ideal treatment, the speed of which your insulin starts to work would perfectly match the rate at which your blood sugar raises after each different meal. In general, the rapidity of the insulin you take should roughly match the speed at which your blood sugar raises after eating. However, even with advances in insulin production, You may find that the speed in which your insulin acts is no match for the raise in blood sugar. There are a number of different insulin regimens to fit in with the varying requirements of different people with diabetes. There are once daily insulin regimen, twice daily insulin regimen, basal bolus regimen, or multiple daily injection therapy, and today I'm going to focus on these three regimens. A once daily insulin regimen may be suitable in people with type 2 diabetes. A number of different types of insulin are appropriate for taking on a once daily routine. Intermediate acting insulin tends to act over a period of up to 18 to 24 hours. You may be advised to take intermediate insulin before bed if your blood glucose levels are too high throughout the night. Long-acting insulin. Long-acting insulin may be advised if you experience hypoglycemia throughout the day. Long-acting insulin remains active for up to 24 hours and needs to be taken at the same time each day. Long-acting analog insulin has no peak period, which can help to reduce instances of hypoglycemia. The insulin you are put on may be either a synthetic insulin or animal insulin. Synthetic insulin is the most commonly prescribed form of insulin, but animal-derived insulin should be available if this is your preference. Will still need to be taking tablets on once-daily injections? Yes, if you are currently on tablets and about to move on to a once-daily injection regimen, it is very likely that you still need to take tablets. Your doctor will be able to advise you whether any changes are needed to the tablets you take. A twice-daily insulin regimen, sometimes referred to as conventional insulin therapy, may be suitable for people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Twice-daily regimens work on the assumption that you will have 3 meals per day. What is a twice-daily insulin regimen? On a twice-daily insulin regimen, you will inject a mixture of a short-acting insulin with intermediate-acting insulin at 2 different times of the day, before breakfast and before dinner. The short-acting may be either soluble insulin or a rapid-acting insulin. Mixing insulin. The mixture of a short-acting insulin and intermediate insulin may be achieved in one of 2 ways, either by using a premixed insulin or by mixing the insulin manually. Premixed insulin will state the ratio of the mix of short and intermediate acting insulin. For example, Insulin COM25 is a premixed insulin, which is 25% soluble insulin and 75% intermediate acting insulin. Premixed insulin may be administered using a syringe or with an insulin pen. Manually mixed insulin. If you need to mix the insulin manually, this will be done by using a syringe. You need to draw up the shorter acting insulin first before drawing out the intermediate insulin. Your healthcare team will fully instruct you on how to draw up the insulin. Twice daily insulin regimen in type 1 diabetes. A twice daily regimen in type 1 diabetes may be suitable if someone has a regular daily routine that includes 3 main meals at similar times each day. A twice-daily regimen may be appropriate for school children, as injections can be given before and after school without the need of an injection during lunch. For people that follow a less regular daily routine, a basal bolus insulin regimen may be more appropriate. Twice-daily insulin regimen in type 2 diabetes. A twice-daily insulin regimen may be recommended for people with type 2 diabetes who experience significantly high blood glucose levels after eating, or people who are not very sensitive to insulin. A basal bolus injection regimen involves taking a number of injections throughout the day. A basal bolus regimen, which includes an injection at each meal, attempts to roughly emulate how a non-diabetic person's body delivers insulin. A basal bolus regimen may be applicable to people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. What is a basal bolus insulin regimen? A basal bolus routine involves taking a longer-acting form of insulin to keep blood glucose levels stable throughout periods of fasting and separate injections of short-acting insulin to prevent rises in blood glucose levels resulting from meals. The role of basal insulin, also known as background insulin, is to keep blood glucose levels at a consistent level during periods of fasting. When fasting, the body steadily releases glucose into the blood to our cells, supplied with energy. Basal insulin is therefore needed to keep blood glucose levels under control and to allow the cells to take in glucose for energy. Basal insulin is usually taken once or twice a day depending on the insulin. Basal insulin need to act over a relatively long period of time, and therefore basal insulin will either be long-acting insulin or intermediate insulin. A bolus insulin is insulin that is specifically taken at meal times to keep blood glucose levels under control following a meal. Bolus insulin needs to act quickly, and so short-acting insulin, which they can be soluble insulin or rapid-acting insulin, will be used. Bolus insulin is often taken before meals, but some people may be advised to take their insulin during or just after a meal if hypoglycemia needs to be prevented. Basal bolus regimen in type 1 diabetes. A basal bolus regimen is popular amongst people with diabetes, particularly for working adults, which may need to be flexible with when they take their doses and how much carbohydrate they eat. People with type 1 diabetes will typically take rapid-acting insulin at meal times and long-acting insulin once or twice a day. Basal bolus regimen in type 2 diabetes. People with type 2 diabetes may be put onto a basal bolus regimen if they experience significantly high blood glucose levels after meals and need to have a flexible insulin regimen to fit in with their lifestyle. People with type 2 diabetes may be taking a combination of soluble insulin and intermediate insulin, or may be put onto rapid-acting and long-acting insulin. Blood glucose testing on a basal bolus regimen. People on a basal bolus regimen will need to regularly test their blood glucose levels through the day to monitor whether the correct doses are being administered. Hypoglycemia can be a relatively common occurrence on a basal bolus regimen, so it is recommended to keep your blood glucose testing kit and a source of fast-acting carbohydrate with you